We actually just had a question from our audience come through asking about the difference between memorable customer experiences for both B2C and B2B companies. So how does that even change between customer facing and business facing organizations?
So maybe let me try and attack this from a theory perspective to start off with. And I'm going to spend a few moments talking about this because I've got to tell you, this is my favorite topic at the moment because I think this is really so fundamentally important. You know, the issue for me is if you think of customer loyalty, loyalty is a function of memory, okay? You can't be loyal to something that you haven't experienced, okay? Because if every experience was new, then you wouldn't, you know, it would be a new experience and therefore you wouldn't be loyal. So loyalty is a function of memory. So once you've got that in your mind, the whole area around how a memory is formed becomes really, really important. And again, this is something that we talk about in the guide. And if you haven't read it, I would suggest that you download it. But you know, how memories are formed becomes really, really important. And a couple of things that I would say here, you know, first of all, what a guy called Professor Daniel Kahneman, who's won the Nobel Prize for Behavioral Economics, talks about the fact that how people remember an experience is they remember the peak emotion that they felt and they remember the end emotion that they felt. And he calls that the peak end rule, okay? So you remember the peak emotion and you remember the end emotion, and those things form a memory. So if anybody here in the audience remembers getting engaged, getting married, the birth of your children, you know, any good thing and unfortunately any bad thing, if you think of those memories come attached with an emotion. You know, it's like an email attachment of that emotion as well. And the important thing here is that it raises some important questions, which are things like, well, what emotions are you trying to create in your customers? Okay, so which emotions are you trying to evoke in your customers? What are you evoking today? And what emotions are you trying to evoke tomorrow? And do those emotions drive value for you? So if you evoke those emotions in your customers, do you get more? In other words, do you improve your net promoter? Do you improve your market share? Do you improve spend? So on and so forth. So those things are important. And where does that peak end rule come in your journey map? Okay. But to come back and I'll answer the question specifically, the most common question I get is, do emotions apply in the business to business arena? And my answer is always, as long as your customers are human beings, then yes, it does. Yeah. And the point I'm trying to make here is that we are talking here about human traits. Okay. This is not, you know, this is not just customers. In my view, people in business tend to be more sophisticated in covering and hiding those emotions, but our decision making is made by emotions. Who do you trust? Do you think that customers care for you as a person, even in that business to business world? And we've done loads and loads of research that can actually prove that that's the case. So for us, it's very much a question of understanding the human being, understand how people make decisions. Then you can then go, well, okay, they're in a business environment, they're in a B2C environment, they're this industry, they're that industry, you know, so on and so forth. Then you can do that. But the fundamental is understanding how human beings make choices, basically.
Yeah. I'd actually love to turn a couple of those questions directly to you, Stephanie. So Colin, when you were talking about, you know, what type of emotions are you trying to evoke for your clients and their customers today and tomorrow, what does that look like for you at ERC, Stephanie?
Yeah, so I think Colin articulated it very well, where you have to work with every client and their customers very specifically to understand the dynamics of those customers. What products are you selling or services are you selling? And to Colin's point, what emotions are you trying to get out? Is it loyalty? Like, what's important to you in your business for your customers, the experience you want to have? I've worked with Coca-Cola before, and they were my favorite because they said, we want every customer to get off a phone call with the taste of Coke in their mouth, right? So there's just the emotional side of it that, to what Colin said, is incredibly important, whether it's B2B or B2C. At the end of the day, we're all consumers. We're all customers. It's just, how do you interact with those customers based on where they're at from an education standpoint, what's important to them, what kind of interaction do you want to get out of that relationship? And so it's a matter of building those personas across the journey to really understand the emotion and the experience you want to build out, whether it's B2B or B2C, to make sure you're evoking those right emotions as they go through that experience with you.
Yeah.
It may be worth just throwing in the Aria, the example I was talking to you about when we were talking earlier.
Yeah.
Because again, this is sort of a digital experience, and so I don't think you heard this, Stephanie. Yesterday, I got a text from my doctors, and it said, we're planning for the COVID vaccination, and would you be prepared to take the COVID vaccination, when it's available? And I wrote back, yes. But after I wrote back, I thought, does that mean that I'm vulnerable? Surely there must be people ahead of me that are. So I'm now starting to feel concerned. Okay. On one side of it, I'm thinking, bloody hell, I may be able to leave the house, after having a vaccination. And on the other side of it, I'm going, well, hold on, but that could mean that I'm vulnerable. So I then talked to my wife and said, did you get a text message? No, I didn't get a text message. Turns out that a load of people did, and it's not that I'm vulnerable, but everyone got a text message, but it drove hundreds of phone calls into the surgery because people were concerned. Okay, they were concerned that they were vulnerable, and when were they get. Now, if you went to the doctors and said, when you sent that text message out, did you want people to feel concerned? Then of course they wouldn't have said that they want to feel concerned, but they didn't think about the reaction that human beings would have to receiving that, and they didn't deal with that and build that into their experience. Okay, and the other thing that I think is going to happen there, this goes back to the expectation, is they've also now built an expectation that I'm going to get it soon. Okay, now if I don't get it for 4 months, I'm going to be going, they bloody text me back in November and asked me if I wanted it. Where is it? And this isn't a plea to get it early, but you get the idea. They haven't thought through the implications of that. They're doing it for good intention. They want to know the numbers, they want to be able to plan, but they haven't thought through the implications from that emotional standpoint of that experience that they've now concerned. And the irony is, it's cost them money because they're having to deal with all the phone calls that are going into the surgery.
Yeah, and just to add to that too, I think, Colin, you're exactly right. Every time you communicate with your customers, it's what is the provocation of what will happen as an outcome. So if we do this, what do we think are going to be the consequences of it? Will they feel afraid? Will they be excited? Whatever that is, but making sure everyone's prepared for the outcome of what happens after they receive that communication, right? I've had clients before who come to me who said, hey, we threw a 1-800 number out, now what? Or I've built a product and now I have customers calling, what do I do? So it's really thinking through and sitting down and understanding what's important to make sure we're communicating effectively and we're prepared to know what emotions those customers are going to feel when they receive any communication from us as businesses.
Yeah, and I think if I can just build on top of that, I think the other part for me that starts to differentiate organizations is that understanding of human behavior. Okay, so understanding that when you do this, the COVID vaccine is a good example. When you do that, you're likely to get this. Okay. Now, what we know from the research that we've done is that what people say and what people do can be very different. Okay. So, Disney know that when they ask people what they want to eat at a theme park, Disney know that people say they'd like to have an option of a salad. Disney also know that people don't eat salads when they go to theme parks. They eat hot dogs and hamburgers. So understanding the difference between what customers say and what customers do, and the implications, as you're rightly saying, of that communication is absolutely vital going forward.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect transition to how we're actually building these communications and digital interactions with customers. You talk about in this smoother, faster, frictionless customer experience, Colin, humanizing technology. So I'd love to ask the both of you what that actually looks like in practice.
Yeah, sure. Again, I'm going to give you another example because I think examples sort of make the point, basically. And this is actually dealing with Amazon. So I had a kitchen knife which fell on the floor and it broke. Okay, the blade snapped. And I was a bit surprised. Went online to Amazon because I just buy everything on Amazon. I went online and looked it up and looked up the order, and basically they had a 2-year warranty. So contacted Amazon through chat, okay, and it asked me my the order number. But here's the issue: when I put the order number in, the details of that order came back within a nanosecond, okay. And my immediate reaction was, I'm clearly not talking to a human being, because no human being could look up that information that quickly. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't have a problem with that. Okay. But as the sort of the debate with the chatbot continued, I was then passed on to a human being to continue the conversation. The human being asked me the same questions that I just spent 5 minutes talking to the chatbot about. So they didn't look back at the thing, which again goes back to, we're just taking processes from the sort of the normal world and just digitizing them, which is unusual for Amazon, because I do like Amazon normally. But I guess that's what I mean by that humanization. If you wanted to make that humanization, that experience a bit more human, the irony is, I would say, delay the information coming back from them. And I'm not talking about give it 10 minutes. I'm talking about a second, or 3 seconds, or something. But so the issue for me is that as we get more into AI and all those other wonderful things, then that humanization is going to need to happen. But I know this is an area of your expertise, isn't it, with chatbots and everything else, Stephanie?
Yeah, I would just add and say, from a methodology standpoint, I think it's critical that companies are transparent when they interact with customers. So highlight what's a real human versus what is AI or digital humans. I think we've all had an experience like you, Colin, where you're with a chatbot and you assume it's a human and then quickly realize it's not. And the biggest red flag or issue I think any company could have is if there is that gap between what someone is saying in your chatbot that is potentially, a digital chatbot. When that handoff happens to an actual human, there needs to be the transfer of knowledge. What was the customer trying to do? What are they saying? Because when you have to re-authenticate, when you have to explain again what your problem is, start over, anything like that, it instantly creates a bad experience. So it would, to your point, would be almost better if they waited a few minutes in chat to have a real human, if there isn't that intelligence provided to the human from the digital version.
Yeah, and I think to build on that, what we're talking here about is what I would call a subconscious experience. Okay, so if you think about your conscious is the things that you're aware of, The subconscious is the messages that you're receiving, but you're not necessarily aware of them. So if you think about the fact that you're breathing at the moment, okay, and hopefully the audience are breathing, but everyone's suddenly gone, I've just breathed in and I've just breathed out, you know. Now, you were breathing before I mentioned that, okay, but you are now conscious of it. You're aware of it because I've talked to you about breathing. So the point I'm trying to get to is there are lots of subconscious messages that organizations give to their customers without thinking through the implications of those. And that could be just the speed of the chatbot. It could be calling the chatbot Bert, and you think you're talking to a human being, and then you find you're not talking to a human being. You know, all those various stuff, because that then starts going, well, hold on, is this an authentic experience that I'm having here? You know, how do I know I can trust people on this? So you've got to think of not just the conscious side of things, but the subconscious part of an experience as well.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit more about technology. Stephanie, what technology are you using to build memorable digital experience, and what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so we have a lot. We've invested a ton in our what we call our AI ecosystem. It's buzzy right now, but it is a matter of making sure we're building things that are actually real. Right, so we have, I'd say the two biggest that we've seen tremendous value out of is that we have an AI insights tool that we utilize with our clients. It's allowing us to know 100% of the conversations, every single thing our clients' customers are saying. So that enables us to not just guess about what are those gaps, what are customers asking about, what are the problems they have, how do they feel about the brand, those experiences, products, how can they be better? So from there, we leverage a tool, a platform called Airkit, where we then can quickly build out those digital experiences that are tied to the client system still and solve those root problems or the what our clients' customers are facing. So we can use the insights tool to get all of that. Then we can shoot out those new digital experiences. And then we circle back all the time to understand what is the impact, what's the value, you know, really have a really good understanding of exactly what the technology is doing so that we can get a better grasp of how the customers are feeling about that, and then what that has translated into in terms of measurement and metrics for the success of it.
Awesome. And because I'm part of the Airkit team here, I would love to dig into a little bit more about maybe a specific experience that you've built out through Airkit. Would you be able to share?
Sure. Yeah, I know. I was doing a shameless Airkit plug there. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a tremendous platform. I think it's a really fantastic way to be able to leverage the creation of those digital experiences super quickly. I don't think anyone understands the complexity of systems and technology. You think a customer should be able to, you know, have an experience just like this because they've experienced it with another brand that they've worked with. It's not as simple, especially with some clients having 10, 20 different systems that are, you know, pocketed together. So for us, one of the newest ways that we've done it was for secure payment capture. So part of, you know, we are very strong in terms of PCI, you know, very heavy in compliance for security for the data that we are able to touch. And so with everyone going to work at home, we were able to spin up a secure payment option where our agents, instead of them asking for credit card information or any PII data, they can send out a text message to that customer while they're on the phone and say, I sent you this link to provide your secure information. They can fill that out, and it's sent then to our agent to be able to finalize the transaction. But then our agents aren't touching any sort of personal information.